we live in a world where there are other nations that we perceive as our bitter enemies, and we act as though they are our enemies. China, Russia, North Korea, Venezuela, Myanmar, other nations like that, maybe Cuba. These are nations that we have seen as enemies for many years, and we don't trade with them. We impose sanctions on them. We condemn them. We say nasty things about them in the United Nations. And it's all very antagonistic, and many of them are nuclear powers. And so there's that aspect or angle as well. Some of them are involved militarily, and some pose military threats. Certainly China, the threat of China invading Taiwan is one. I have a daughter and 5 grandkids and a son-in-law who live in Taiwan. So I'm very mindful of that one. But I think that, we have in America a sports mentality, which is very much a win-lose mentality that's been driven into all of us, that in order for me to win, you have to lose. And that doesn't always have to be the case in international politics. And I think that we could become friendlier with these nations, often through free trade. So I think of Cuba as a case in point. We have imposed sanctions. The Cuban Revolution was, I think, 1959 when Castro took over. And from then till now, Americans can't go relax on Cuban beaches. We can't go to Cuban hotels. We can't buy and sell stuff directly from Cuba, Cuban cigars and so on. We have a very antagonistic relationship that peaked maybe during the Bay of Pigs or in the 1960s when some of those, the Cuban Missile Crisis. But from that time till this, those relations have not really improved. And in spite of all of our efforts to punish Cuba for being communist, it really hasn't made the world a more stable place. It hasn't stopped Cuba from doing what they do. And we still remain, in some respects, bitter enemies. I am in favor of opening up trade with countries like that. I think that once we start to trade back and forth, we get to know each other better, we understand each other better, and the threat gets diminished. So I'm very much an advocate, a proponent of free trade around the globe, and I would love to open up more trade options with countries that traditionally have been our enemies. And I think, like in the case of Vietnam, we fought a bitter war in the 60s and 70s there, and now we have an excellent trading relationship with that nation, although I think President Trump is going to impose a bunch of tariffs. But in general terms, we now buy lots of goods from Vietnam, and we have a much stronger relationship with them. And that could be the case with other nations around the globe.